Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to our podcast. I'm Mindy Galati here with Lindsay Gray. We're going to talk about the power of grit, how passion and perseverance drive success. This is the Take the Lead, Change the Game podcast for women leaders looking to deepen their knowledge and skills and find enjoyment in the process. We're powered by Safra Leadership. Safra Leadership is a cohort-based coaching experience designed to fuel courage and ignite impact amongst women professionals. I'm Mindy, like I said, and I have Lindsay here with me today, and we're co-founders of Safra and excited to be here to have a good conversation. Together, we bring a blend of leadership coaching, strategy, and lived experience to help women leaders navigate challenges, seize opportunities, and lead with confidence. Today, we're going to spend time talking about grit. Grit is a really interesting topic. We're going to talk about why effort counts twice as much as talent, give you some ideas to think about what grit really means, share some stories, and share with you 4 ways to build and sustain grit in your life. So welcome, Lindsay. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I'm really excited about this topic. I've been doing a lot of noodling on this topic and the ways to build grit. But first, I want to say that there is a researcher by the name of Angela Duckworth, and she is the sort of renowned researcher on the topic of grit. And so we are pulling our insights today from her research. So thanks, Angela. And I want to kick us off by defining grit, because a lot of us, what is grit? Is it just like white knuckling through life, through a miserable life? And that is not what grit is. So the definition of grit, as given by Angela, is the combination of passion and perseverance towards long-term goals. And what Angela says is grit is living like a marathon and not like a sprint. What's your sort of initial reaction to that, Mindy?
Yeah, I think I like the definition because I do think I hear the term grit meaning like grind it out, like just go hard and no breaks. And I actually think that makes you less resilient, less able to kind of maintain the grit. And so, but I like this definition because I think, as we're going to talk about, this passion piece is really important. And having that long-term perspective. Lots of times when we're dealing with grit, it's not about grit for one day. It could be years, lifetime. And so I love this like clarity that her book gives. Her book's fantastic. Everybody should really check it out. And I also like, one thing I took from her book is also that it's not that you're born with grit. Like, I think that, at least for me, if I was going to say where were my assumptions or around grit, it was like, well, you're born with it or you're not. It's really not. Like, it's not that you're just born with it. There's a little bit to that of your personality, but I think everybody can learn it, or at least reflect and have more awareness around how it applies to them.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing she said in the book that I really liked was this sort of breaking down the definition around like what are long-term goals. And again, I think that similar to you, Mindy, like when I thought of grit, I was like, oh, I'm going to grind it out at one job for my whole life. And one of the things she talks about is like, you can change jobs and even potentially change careers, but like, what is the through line of those things? And that actually gave rise to me like crafting my personal mission statement, where it was like, I have like in my head, right, what I think of are like, what is my life's mission? But like really drilling down on like, what are those long-term goals and what are the things I can do either in my professional life or outside of my professional life to drive those goals and build endurance in myself towards those goals.
Yeah. And I think it's, getting some clarity that grit isn't about like just a talent that you have. It's not, again, working through burnout, obsession, never relenting, never changing course. It's really about that consistency. And I think having a mission and a purpose, and most people actually do, they just don't know how to articulate it. And I think you and I are very like mission focused, purposeful people in our life. But what I find interesting is really reflecting on where I've seen people with grit because it isn't to just grind it out and white knuckle. It's something so different. So do you have an example, Lindsay? I have one I'll share, but do you have an example of someone you've seen with grit or what that looks like out in the world?
Yeah, so I have two. The first one is, as some of you may know, I am an immigration lawyer by trade. That's my background. And I just see all of my immigration law colleagues every day. I mean, since it's been a long time. I mean, certainly since 2016, where it's like all of these policy changes all the time. Most of them are very much not good. We've had tons of immigration related crises, and there are many of my colleagues are just living and breathing that every day, and they continue to press on towards the long-term goals of helping families stay together, helping people make lives here in the US, and I really admire them.
Mm-hmm.
The other person that came to mind is my husband, who is a researcher, and of course Angela Duckworth is also a professor. But essentially, my understanding of how research in academia works, certainly at many schools, is you work on projects and papers for like 7 years before they're ever published, and you work for years, you get a paper under review. They think about it for 3 or 4 months, and then they give you a rejection, or they give you a you got to make changes and resubmit and wait another 3 to 4 months and find out if we like it. And I don't think I could do that. And I very heavily admire those that can have projects that they're so passionate about that they're still working on them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say 7 years later with maybe not even an acceptance on it, now, or potential. I mean, and the risk of that, you will never have an acceptance on the paper and that it will not be published. And so to me, folks in research oriented academia definitely show a lot of grit. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on kind of both your examples. Kind of top of mind for me today is actually my daughter. My daughter, Carmen, is 12. And when I think of someone with grit, it's really my daughter in her love of volleyball. And I'll explain it because Carmen is a good athlete, but she's new to volleyball. So she's only played it a couple of years. She's not playing competitive or anything. She plays for her school, but she loves it. She really loves it. It's just the thing that she loves, enjoys doing. And she practices really hard. So she practices, she's so enthusiastic. You should see her on game day. I love it. It makes my heart explode when she's out there and you can see her and she's pumping herself up and she's so excited. But here's the catch. Her teams are really bad. All the teams she's played on and the current team she's on, love y'all on the team, but they haven't won any games, not one game. They get crushed. And it could be really easy, especially for a kid, to just be like, you know what? I hate this. I'm never going to win. I don't want to do it. Yeah. But man, she perseveres because she's passionate about it. She loves it. She sees herself getting better. She sees her teammates getting better. And so it's this morning, dropped her off at school and she has this hope, we're going to do it. Okay, mom, I'll see you for the game and I'm going to go pick her up and we're going to go. And it's I just love watching her because she is going to be successful in whatever she does because she's exhibiting this grit and this understanding that there's something bigger than just winning these games. And I am someone who likes to win. So is Carmen, by the way. Carmen cries after every game. And one time I told her this last year, I said, the reason you're crying is because you care. Yeah. And all these other girls aren't crying because they don't care. And I'm and that's probably why y'all lose a lot of times is because they don't care. I'm but look at yourself. You are here in it to win it and you care. And so I have loved watching her persevere and go after this in spite of it's been really tough. But I think it will serve her well in her life. And I just hope she wins one game. Come on, y'all. Send some
good vibes.
That she wins
one game. I hope so. That's so awesome. Yeah. So, in Angela's book, she talks about why grit matters. So I think, you had mentioned, Mindy, it's not a talent thing. And I think that is kind of one of the main points that she wants to get across in her research is that we think that so much of life is about natural talent, when in fact, like it's really grit and it's really work. And actually when you look at successful folks and you take like sort of natural talent, those with natural talent, however you want to measure it, and those without, like there's very little difference in success outcomes, based on that. It's really who's able to push through and put in the hours. I mean, there's a book called Outliers that really finds that like 10,000 hours is kind of the sweet spot for mastery of a subject, and that you really can't, or at least it's very, very rare to be truly successful. I'm talking like mastery level successful of something if you have not met the 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
And so, grit is a predictor of education, success in education, career, personal goals. It's tied to motivation. And so what we want to spend, the rest of our time talking about is the 4 ways to build and sustain grit. And if it's okay, Mindy, I will take the first one because this is the one I think about the most. And I was surprised and have become really passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
So the first way to build grit is through interest. So you have to have a genuine interest in the thing, and interest, curiosity. And so, one of the things that we think about is like, as parents of children, like we want to build grit, and like you will play the violin for 10 years, but if your kid has no interest in playing the violin, which at least one of my children does not, it's not going to build grit. And so one of the things that we, as a matter of first instance, is we want to have genuine interest in the thing, the long-term goal that we're building towards. And so as parents of children, I think that is where encouraging exploration makes such a difference. I mean, my kids, we let them, when they were younger, they picked a new activity every semester. Basically, we made them stick with it for the semester, and then they could pick something new. And they always did until they found rock climbing. And then they were like, we're done. It's rock climbing or bust. And so, for me, that I think about that so often. And when I'm in a place with work where I feel drudgy or, like disengaged, it's like, what am I interested in that I can dive into and nerd out about?
Yeah. I love that. And, it's when you look at that interest, when you're doing the thing, it just, you lose track of time. You're in like what's called a flow state. And like, I love that. And that's how I feel in some of the work that I do, is I just like get in it and I just love it. And it's interesting to me. I lose track of time. Sometimes I don't show up to a meeting because I'm like researching and I'm all in. But yeah, I mean, you can't force that grit. And I do think like, this isn't a parenting class, but I do think like forcing people to do things they don't want to do because you're hoping to build some skill is not the right answer. Because like I look at Carmen, for example, like this is her choice. I'm not saying you have to go and you have to play, and she's doing it on her own because she loves it. Yeah. And so she's learning those lessons because she loves it. If I was like, you have to play volleyball every year, even if you get annihilated and cry every time, that's not building anything. So
another good example of that is I talked to a number of people that are trying to figure out, like sort of exploring the idea of starting a business. Most of whom would be really great at it. And a common comment that I hear is like, well, I don't want to market, or I don't want to do business development, that I don't like that, going out and like networking and, giving talks and things like that. And there are some people where like, when you really dive into it, you can find ways that are authentic to that person, and then they get really excited. There are also some people that are like, I literally just don't want to do it, and don't make me. And, marketing, networking, business development is something that is true for almost all business owners. And so if that's something that genuinely doesn't interest you, like that's probably not, like a great course of action. And so that would be an example where like, you're just going to set someone up to be miserable, where they're like, well, I've got to do business development and I hate this, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And the next step or next way to build and sustain grit is with practice. And what she says is deliberate practice beats comfort. And what I think is important here is you do have to have some way of measuring that you're improving. And because I think that it's really easy for us to say, oh, I love this thing and I'm passionate about this thing, but you never get better. You never try anything different. You never get to the next level.
Yeah.
That's more like, I don't know, that's more like a hobby. I don't know if you'd say that's being success, but when we're talking about like building a business or playing a sport or whatever the thing is that you want to build more grit around, you want to be improving. And I think that you have to set some, measures of progress of how you're going to get there, because that actually keeps for me at least, it keeps the momentum going. Like if I have something that I'm working toward, and I think as, this is this podcast is for anybody who wants to watch it, but for women leaders, like sometimes we're our own worst critics. You also have to like watch yourself succeed and watch yourself improve and say, wow, I'm doing so much better at this thing. And also talk about like being an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur. I opened my own law firm in 2010 was the first time I opened a firm. And when I look back at like how I do sell or how I do pitch or what comfort I bring to my clients, like I've improved so much.
Yeah.
But it's 100%. Not because I did everything the same. Like I took feedback, I tried something new. I practice. And I do think that a lot of people think, well, I love this thing, I should be good at it. No, I mean,
yeah,
no, is a big example. If she loves this thing and she needs some work, but she works at it. She tries new things. She takes advice. And I think as business, people in business, we have to be willing to have that same sort of method to what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things that Angela talks about is just how important the type of practice is. Like an example she gives, and I'm totally going to butcher it, but it's something like this. She's like, I've run 3 miles a day for 6 years. Like, how come I'm not breaking the world record for the mile? Or like, how come I can't run this? And it's like, well, you're jogging.
You're doing the same speed every day. So you're not going to improve. Yeah.
Making that practice deliberate, right? So, practicing, if you're a musician, like practicing certain types of skills or certain types of movement that are, just out of your comfort zone, because then they become, eventually they're in your comfort zone and you can get into flow state. Like deliberate practice and flow state are actually like antithetical to each other, because deliberate practice is I'm doing something that I can't quite do yet. And flow state is like, I am honing, like I am comfortable and I'm just in flow.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really cool example that like the first time you go into something, I mean, let's say giving presentations or giving talks, for example, like you're not going to be perfect the first time you do it. Like, you could be good at it. You could have some natural talent, but like, you're not going to be a master at it on day one.
Yeah. Sure. So we've talked about the 2 ways so far: interest, practice. There's purpose. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So purpose, interest is my own selfish internal curiosity and interest. Purpose is connecting what you're doing to something larger than yourself. And so those that demonstrate the most grit, which is not surprising, right? Like tie what they're doing into making the world better in some way. So like for a researcher, for example, Angela taught us like her research outcomes were about what, success metrics and what grit is and how to build it. And so then you and I, Mindy, as, business owners, leaders, coaches, can spread that around. And like, hopefully, the world is better because people have passion and perseverance for sustained long-term goals and more goals are achieved. And so, for me, when I think about purpose and like empowering other women to really like determine what they want and help them get there, right? Put a plan in place to how to get there. That is how I perceive, with what we're doing with Safra, sort of a purpose that's greater than the two of us.
Yeah. And I think it's important because I call this my why. Like, why am I doing all of this? Because, and I, I think it's looking at saying, what am I adding? What am I contributing to the world? And, on this topic, it's like, I feel like I'm making, the world more, open to women in leadership. I'm making women more confident in becoming leaders. And really the long game is like my daughter, your daughters, like their daughters. And so I think like that's how, and I think if you look at this in terms of movements, like any kind of political movement or social movement, like often the people who are in it for 50 years don't realize, they don't get to see the outcome.
Yeah. Wow.
This is where perseverance comes in, and that grit is like, well, I may not benefit from this, but somebody will. And so I love that purpose and that why. And it does keep you going in the face of resistance. It does keep you going when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting tired. If you have a purpose, if you have that why, you'll keep going. That's key to grit.
Yes, totally.
And the last way to build and sustain grit is hope. And hope is different than purpose. Hope is that belief that what I'm doing is going to lead to progress. What I'm doing, I can overcome setbacks. I can adjust as needed. And I think, I don't know, a lot of people don't think about hope in their career and in their work, but it's so important. It's that sense of optimism. It's that sense of like, it's all going to be okay. It's all going to work out in the end. That allows you, I think for me, when things are tough, when I go to that hopeful place, it makes me feel comforted enough to say, all right, you got this, like, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I think that's important. You were talking about an example with Stephen King related to this.
Yeah. So Stephen King's first novel, Carrie, was rejected 30 times. So, when you think about, I feel like if you look up almost any like master of a subject, they absolutely remember their rejections, and they probably have way more than you think they will. And actually one of the things, that Angela talks about is like, she uses a different term that I'm going to use here, but like basically athletes that like came out of nowhere, like stars that came out of nowhere, right? Like new on the scene, or like, Wonder Boy or whatever it is. And she's like, no.
That's not what happened.
Have been, gruelingly practicing and demonstrating grit for years. You just haven't heard about them until now, And so, Stephen King's first novel was rejected 30 times. Michael Jordan was cut from the high school basketball team, and now he's probably known as the greatest NBA basketball player of all time. And so definitely that hope of like, I will get there. I heard a really great quote from a speaker the other day. I went to like a women in tech executives thing on Monday night. And one of the speakers said that being in the executive seat, the CEO seat, or the founder seat is really difficult because you don't have a boss. And so you're not getting this feedback. And she said, it's challenging to tell the difference between this is hard and I am failing. And that really resonated with me. And I think that that's this piece, right? Like, we're not failing, we will get there. And some days it doesn't look like that. And hope is just sort of the knowledge and the confidence and the trust that we are making progress and we'll get there sometime.
Yeah. And I think it's important for everyone to remind themselves, like, I do think we think that people just suddenly pop out of nowhere. And it's like, and they're on the scene and and it's never how it is. It's just not. You don't know how often they failed, how hard they practiced. You don't know.
That is true. Zero times.
It's true, zero times. And I think in this age of like social media and everything is about like how much influence you have, it can feel like people popped out of nowhere. And now, and I find myself falling into that trap sometimes, right? Like of like, oh, should I be doing more? Oh, this person. It's like, no, we're all on that path. And, and so I think it's really important to be kind to yourself, hold on to that hope. And I see people with the most grit, they really do that. And nobody just pops out of the ground, Michael Jordan or Stephen King. It just doesn't happen. So
no. Well, thanks everybody for being with us today. As a takeaway, we'd love for you to think about, what area of grit are you the strongest in and what area would you like to grow? And we'd love to hear about it. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.